his area first to see if he was out. And if he was out, I'd stay with him. If not, I'd go find something else to do and then keep checking back in until he was out. And it was always a disappointing day for me at the zoo if I never got to see him. And we would the best days were, I don't think most people realize that. I didn't know until I worked there. We're used to the zoos, the days that it's packed and there's, hundreds and thousands of people everywhere, but there's a lot of days where there's nobody there. And those were my favorite days. Harambe and I would just hang out together alone. And, it worked out well because the customers were there mainly to see baby gorillas, and the other group of gorillas had the babies. So if Harambe was out, they'd walk in and a lot of people would make, groan and make some nasty comments about, oh, I wish, the babies were out, and they'd leave. And so that's how I started thinking, well, if, everybody else wants to go do something else, I'm going to stick here with you and not make you feel like that I'm, looking forward to something else. I'm looking forward to seeing you. And so it just started that way. And we just developed a relationship where I missed him if I didn't see him. That's the one real disappointment I have is his last day. I went to try and see him at least 5 or 6 times, and I finally gave up and went home. And it's, so I left an hour or two before the horrible incident happened. But that was my normal day. I'd keep going back and checking to see if he was out. And so if he was out and I was there, we would see each other. And it just developed into the kind of where I knew I expected it, and it seemed like he expected it too. And that's how it worked out. And I've been seeing lately these videos that I'd never seen before of male gorillas with their babies climbing all over them. And I don't know how often that happens, but that was my real goal, was to get Harambe so comfortable with me that when he had his babies, he would, bring them up and let them climb all over him. Come on, kids, Jeff's here. We got to let him take pictures of us. And so I was just, preparing him for that, to where he wouldn't be afraid, because the other group with the babies, that male silverback Jomo, he never had anything to do with his babies. He really didn't give them any time of the day. And Gladys, the oldest one, she would actually come over and try and interact with him. And he's like, nah, I'm not interested. And I just had a feeling that Harambe was going to be the complete opposite. He was going to be, a hands-on dad. And now, like I said, I've recently been seeing some videos of male gorillas letting their young ones climb all over them. And it's what I had hoped for with Harambe. And it really, it breaks my heart. It's like, oh, it would have happened. It really, now that I see other gorillas doing it, it's like, oh, I missed that. That's when I get sad, is when I think, if he was still here, I would be hanging out with him and he would be showing off his, here's my 2 babies, or here, by now he might have 3 or 4 or 5, who knows? And that was my goal. And so, we just hung out together whenever I had a chance.
It really sounds like you guys developed a bond. Like he was able to see you and had something familiar out in the crowd that he knew about. How, when you would go down there, what was it like? How did he react to all the noise and everything inside the exhibit on a day-to-day?
He didn't like noise. He really didn't like when people would yell at him. he would, if somebody yell at him, he would just go in his cave and hide. And with Cincinnati Zoo actually being in the middle of a city, there's a lot of noise from the outside world, especially ambulances, because it's surrounded by hospitals. And so he was always hearing these sirens, and, he would look up and around. And the other thing was the air medical helicopter from University of Cincinnati Hospital we were right on the landing where they'd come in and they'd fly over all the time. And so I don't know what he thought about a helicopter, if it would ever, if he was hoping it would stop down and let him jump in and take him out or whatever. But, it was always, these things were always flying overhead, or there was noises all around. And he's, like I said, he really, I enjoyed it the most, and he seemed to enjoy it the most when it was just us on a real quiet, weekday afternoon where all the kids were in school, and it wasn't great weather, so not many people were there, and that's when I had the best times, and he seemed to really, relax, and just he would come and hang out where I would be. And that's the other thing. He had 2 girlfriends in there with him, 2 female gorillas that he was going to be mating with. But he didn't spend any time with them. He stayed on one side of the enclosure, and they stayed on the other. And I hardly ever saw them interact. But he would seem to interact with me. It was like he enjoyed being with me more than his own kind. Sometimes it was kind of weird, but it was fun, and that was the best part about it.
So real quick, for everybody tuning in, we're here with Jeff McCurry. He was a photographer that was at the Cincinnati Zoo and took the viral meme image of Harambe. But today we're digging deeper into that. We're going to actually show some other photos that Jeff has of Harambe and get a better sense of Harambe and who he was, and also learn more from Jeff about the experience of getting to know Harambe, something all of us wish we would have had that opportunity to. Now, Jeff, Sierra, our producer, actually has a great question. Curious about what inspired you to volunteer at the zoo. How did you end up there hanging out with Harambe?
It really was so accidental and weird. In the summer, at the time I did sports photography for Northern Kentucky University, and I would have my summers free. And so in the summer, I would go around searching for butterflies. That was one of the things I like to take pictures of. And one year I couldn't find any butterflies. They really are disappearing. And it hit me, wait a minute, the zoo has more plants than anybody else in the city. I'll go up to the zoo and see if I can find some butterflies. And I went there and literally found them in the parking lot and thought, okay, this was a good idea. So I went inside and bought a zoo pass and started taking pictures of the butterflies. They have massive amounts of plants there and flowers. And one day then I saw they had baby gorillas, and I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you had baby gorillas. This is before Harambe was there. And so I started taking pictures of the baby gorillas. And one day, one of the moms grabbed another baby. So she had 2 babies in her hand, and everybody there was just freaking out like, oh my God, I can't believe we're seeing this, so excited. And somebody asked me, hey, did you get any pictures of that? And I said, yeah, lots of them. It's digital. You just fire away when something good happens. And they asked me to send it to their Facebook page at the zoo if I would, and I did. And shortly after that, the zoo contacted me and asked me if I would like to be a volunteer photographer for them. And I said, sure, And so I just started going in and doing, and the job itself, they really just said, do whatever you want to do. I took it hoping to get more access, but that was the one disappointment. I didn't get more access like you would think going, anywhere I wanted. I was just allowed in there anytime. And, I did everything I did from the public spaces, but they never, said, hey, we need you to do this. We need you to do that. You're doing too much gorillas. It was always, oh, you like gorillas? Okay. And there was 6 or 5 other photographers, and everybody else kind of just parted ways and said, well, Jeff, he loves doing that. Jeff, you've got the gorillas. We'll get everything else. And so it just, organically developed like that. And then some of the people the volunteers started telling me, oh, we've got this new silverback coming, Harambe, and you're going to really love him. And I was, I just like, yeah, okay. I didn't know what to think or anything, and one day, he finally showed up, and it's like, oh, wow. Okay. I see why people were excited. This guy, he's impressive. And so, like I said, I just started hanging out with him, and it wasn't a disappointment for me to go to the gorilla exhibit. There'd either be Jomo with his babies or there'd be Harambe. So I was always happy. And that's why everybody at the zoo said, hey, if you need to find Jeff, he'll be at the gorillas. Because I never found any reason to leave unless there was nobody out.
Well, I'm glad you were always there, because you have left an amazing collection of work of Harambe that, we wouldn't have this access and this understanding of him. And, one thing that became very clear to us as we started making the movie was going through all these images. Harambe was very comfortable with you, and you get to feel his personality through these photos. There's an extra spark in these pictures that you feel this connection and openness, and in a way that suddenly you feel like you're his friend as well. And so I find them very magical, and I'm very excited to share some of these other ones we have. Now, Elizabeth, hey, Elizabeth, she's joining us, and she does say the noise factor is something we don't really think about with creatures in captivity. And thank you for educating. And, that's a great point. The zoo is very small in Cincinnati. And so for people to know, Harambe never had a break from that noise. Those and the ambulances, we heard several of them go by while we were there. So it was a really loud, and must have been very foreign to him all the time there. Julie King says, great work. Thank you, Julie, for tuning in. And we can't wait to share the movie with you, which will be coming out World Gorilla Day. Now, let's see. Jeff, I wanted to talk really quickly about the photo we all know. Let's see, I'm going to pop you in here. So the photo we all know of Harambe. Now, what most people don't know is this is a series of 3 photos. And I was wondering if you could just talk about that real fast. And I was going to show everybody the other 2.
Well, it was his first day out, and everybody there told me, hey Jeff, this is when he's going to be out. So it was like, you've got to be there. And it was it's shocking to me what happened with the photo, how it went viral, and then to see that, wow, this is the first photos I took of him. But it was I can tell in his attitude, especially in this one, where he's like, who are you and what the hell are you doing? We didn't know each other yet. And it's real obvious to me that, he's trying to figure out, he was just literally dropped into this strange world, and trying to figure out what life's going to be like. And all of a sudden there's lots of other people there because everybody else was excited too. But I was, front and center with him for the whole time he was out. And I think he got the feeling right away that, okay, this guy's going to be around a while. I might as well make the best of it, because I was there all day with him, and it turned out to be, everybody loves the photo I took there. And that was, it was not nearly my favorite photos of him. It's, the zoo people would always pick the pictures to distribute and, promote. I never did that. I just give them all to them and let them pick. And so then after that happened, that one went, even before, from the beginning, everybody liked that one. And so then I kind of, set on a mission. Okay, I'm going to take some really good pictures now. With the problem I have with that photo is, as a photographer, the lighting is terrible. It's like, okay, I want better lighting. And so whenever I'd wake up and look outside and it'd be a real gloomy, overcast day, it's like, all right, I need to go see Harambe. This is great lighting. And so that's what I mean when I say I would spend a lot of time with him on these gloomy, overcast days, because that's the best lighting for photography. But it's the kind of day that most people wake up and say, no, I don't think it's a good day to go to the zoo. So it worked out perfect that it would just be very few people in there, and Harambe and I would just end up hanging out. And like you said, after a while, he got to know me and understood that, hey, I wasn't there for anything other than to hang out with him. And I would guess at least half the time I didn't even take pictures. I'd just stand there and we'd stare at each other, and and then he got comfortable, and he'd literally start posing for me later in times. He would look at me and laugh and give a different pose and look over at me and say, "Did you get that?" And, I felt like I talked to him, and I felt like he was talking to me, and in that nonverbal way that he understood what my goal was, and he helped me a lot. Because without, it wasn't, nothing was sneaky. Nothing was, okay, I got to sneak this picture and, get this good picture. It was always, okay, let's do this together, was the way it felt. There was never anything, where I was doing something that he didn't want me to do. It was always, I felt like he was, okay, now's the time to take pictures.
Wait, I was going to ask about this one that we're looking at here. He seems to, there's a very intimate photo. You can very see the difference between the first day and where we are here. Do you remember this particular day?
Not particularly, but I remember many like it. And that's what I mean when he'd look at me. This was one of the last days that I took photos of him. And this particular time, he was closer to me and up on a rock. And then he decided to leave, and he stopped at this spot and looked back for me. And like I said, posed for me. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You're here to take pictures of me. I'll hang out here for you for a few minutes." And that's where this one comes from. And it was, just it really felt like I had a relationship with him, where I wasn't just there trying to steal a picture from him. It was, a partnership where he was like, "Okay, I'll do my best to make this the best photo for you." And he did a great
you can really
job.
See it. He's definitely giving you, you can see there's a special look in his eye that he's got there.
And I had his other silverback that was there, Jomo, to compare it to, and it was completely night and day the way they acted towards me and treated me. So I knew I had something special with him, that he was really helping me out.
What I like this one. It's just sort of
Yeah.
What this, let's see, this one here is another one I like. He's definitely giving some looks around to the crowd. What, with your experience there, was it mostly like, what do you think people connect with or understand? Why did you see people being drawn to the gorillas? What do you think we get from that?
Well, the main draw for the zoo and the way they attract customers was the baby gorillas. People just love baby gorillas. And like I said, that's how I started taking pictures of baby gorillas. And, you really can't take a bad picture of a baby gorilla. They're just, as cute as young children. It's, you can tell. It's like, oh yeah, we are really related close. And so just like everybody likes to see the new baby, everybody wants to see the new baby gorilla. But that's where Harambe, he was able to break out of that, and everybody started to treat him like he was as special as the babies. And, he was not a disappointment to see him. It was like, you just could tell that, this was a magnificent creature, and it, he seemed to have a personality. And like I said, people there who knew him before I met him, were all telling me, "No, you're really going to love Harambe." They knew he was different, and they kept telling me so beforehand, and they were right. Like I said, it really makes me sad lately thinking that how fun it would be to see him enjoying himself so much more with babies. It's hard to enjoy yourself when you're caged up all your life, but if there is something that would have made him, his day go better and be, enjoyable, I just know he would have played with his babies all the time. It just it just was the way he seemed to be, that he would be so excited to have somebody to share his time with.
Could you feel his you could really feel, saying he didn't really interact too much with the other gorillas that were there. Did he just strike you as sort of shut down and internal?
Yeah. He just hung out by himself, and they had this little cave on the far end where he would go to that side, and he would stay in there a lot. Except when I was there, he would come out and sit on his rock right in front of me, or like you saw him leaning against the wall, laying on his back, it was funny. He would, lay there for a while and then he'd look back right at me and say, are you okay? You getting this? It really, he felt like he had, he was like my photo assistant, he's like, okay, I'm going to do this and, get ready. And this will be a good picture. And, it wasn't hard to get, a good picture of him. Like I said, I didn't have to sneak or, pretend or try and, work hard. I just had to be there. And he would be like, oh, okay, you like this, you like that? And he would always, I imagine the big lens, you see the big, shining reflection at you. So he's looking at that. He always knew, okay, he's got the camera out, that there's that thing shining at me. And it never seemed to bother him. It seemed to, he'd realize, okay, this is what he's doing. And that's when I'd get the great smiles. And, he for being in his situation, it seemed like he enjoyed me being there. And I really was happy to be there for him. It made my day better, to see him. It was, like I said, the last day, that was such a disappointment because I kept going back and back. And, I even asked one of the keepers, what's going on? And they said, oh, there's trouble moving him back around in the back. He'll be out soon. And, I finally, I just, gave up and went home because I had started the day doing 2 basketball games for a friend's daughter, taking pictures. And so I was and it was a Saturday on a holiday weekend, which is a time I would not normally go. It was packed. And that's, I avoided the crowds. And so it was an unusual day for me to be there anyway, but I was driving past literally on my way home and thought, well, I need to stop. And that's the only reason I stopped was to go see him. That's, like I said, that's the relationship we had. It wasn't, to do anything else but to see him. And I kept, going back and he wasn't out yet. And finally at, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock is like, well, I'm, been a long day already. I'm going to go home and I'll see him tomorrow. Or, when the holiday weekend was over, because that's what I say, their traffic there, the amount of people there, it varied widely, but on the weekends it would just be, wall to wall packed. And that's, I just figured I'd get out of the way, let them have those days. I'll come when nobody else is there. Are you there, Eric? Looks like you're frozen on us.
Some technical. Okay, there we go. I'm back. Are you back now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we out for a second. You're thinking, all right, I'm going to see him after the holiday weekend when the crowds are gone and we can get back to hanging out. How did you find out what happened to him?
I came home and was just, downloading my friend's daughter's basketball pictures and turned on the news and saw it on the news like everybody else. And it was like, oh my God. It was, such a shock to be sitting at my computer and listening to the news in the background. And, they're talking about this tragedy that just happened at the zoo. And like, oh, you're kidding me. I mean, it was, I was just, didn't know what to do. I knew I didn't want to go back to the zoo and get involved in, dealing with that. That's, it was nothing for me to contribute then. I'm just a photographer that I don't deal with media relations. And, even though I worked in that department, so I just, thought, okay, I'll go Tuesday and see what's happening. Cause it was, one of those 3-day Monday holiday weekends. And, went and Tuesday and everybody, all the other workers there were so sad. And, they were truly devastated by it. He was, if you could pick one animal in the zoo that everybody was liked and was a star, he was clearly their favorite. He wasn't just my favorite, it was everybody liked him. And that's why I think I ended up with so many pictures too, is everybody there encouraged me do as much as I could with him, because they loved looking at the pictures more than I did. It seemed like, everybody was really happy to, and they really, just let me go. You do that really well. You just keep doing that. And I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is good. And so it was, it just, with the situation turning out the way it is, it just, so shows you how fate is so fickle and so odd that, I ended up being friends with somebody. I treat him as a person in my head, but with, the most famous gorilla in the world, and everybody worldwide wants to know what was he like. And it's like, wow, I'm really the only one that has that answer. That's just, it's a bizarre feeling in a lot of ways, but it's a great feeling, not bizarre in a bad way. That, okay, like you had said earlier, I appreciate that it's, I get so much positive feedback from people that, I was able to do what I did. And I just think, hey, I was doing what I enjoyed to do. Luckily, Harambe was, so cooperative, but I don't do things for other people or for, a reason other than I just enjoyed it. I had a unique situation with my life where I retired at 24, which, is not normal, but I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 24. So I was already decades into spending my life finding things that I enjoyed doing that, and what the way it is with photography, my legs were crushed, my arm, 3/4 of my body was crushed. And so I'm always have pain in my body, but when I'm taking pictures, that goes away. It's the best way I found to ignore it. And that's, my time with Harambe was so good because I could spend 4 or 5 hours with him and feel normal, not, be thinking, oh man, this is hurting, this is hurting, this is hurting. When I go home, I'd feel it, but it really gave me such a nice break from my normal reality. And that when I'm focused in, on getting pictures of him, it shut down my brain to all the other things in my body that I didn't want to feel. And so it was a great escape for me and to be with him. I don't know if he realized I was getting that out of it, but that's, like I said, that's was one of the reasons that I spent so much time with him, was I enjoyed being with him, but I also felt better physically. And so it was, a win-win for me. And then to see the pictures and how people, long before the horrible thing that happened to him, people would compliment me like they still do on, how much they like the Harambe pictures. And, the zoo used them a lot. And I was like, yeah, hey, this really seems to be a good, working relationship where we're both getting something out of it. Unfortunately, Harambe had to be locked up to play his part. I wish I was going to visit him somewhere in the wild and, could develop that relationship. But, we had to deal with the situation we had and make the best of it. Okay, you're frozen again, it looks like. But like I said, I've been seeing a lot of videos lately with male gorillas, and I don't ever remember seeing them before when I was with Harambe and any time before, but I wasn't looking for them. But there's been quite a few lately where these male gorillas are letting their youngsters climb all over them and, play with them. And it just breaks my heart. It's like, that was my dream. That was the goal right there. And okay, if these other gorillas are doing it, then I know Harambe would have done it, because like I said, Jomo, the other one, he wanted no part of it. And Gladys, she would try. She was, a very outgoing youngster, and she would go over to him and he just, no, not interested in you. And I just had the feeling that Harambe would be, reaching out and grabbing them and pulling them towards him. Here, sit on my lap, climb on. And now I see videos of that happening with other gorillas. It's like, oh, it wasn't a crazy plan. It really would have worked. And I just feel that makes me sad. That we lost him, and it's just selfish reason that I wanted to do that with him. But I thought it would make his life better, and I wanted to see how it would look in pictures.
Well, it's interesting because even though that didn't unfortunately get to happen, Harambe's story, we hope, will save so many baby gorillas in the future.
Yeah.
So, it's the loss has been terrible to have lost Harambe, but it's really incredible that you've maintained keeping him active in everyone's minds. And actually, I want to get into that next, how you and Harambe have spent the rest of every day together since that day. Elizabeth says, my 5-year-old niece said he looks just like people when she saw his photos. So, even kids can comprehend that we're very close. And should we have our closest living relative like this behind bars? Elizabeth says he was so beautiful and so clearly intelligent.
Yeah.
You can really see that through the photos. Like I said, there's a special spark. Thulani said, great work. Thulani's a South African filmmaker, works with a lot of gorillas out in the wild. So it's really nice to hear from him. Michelle, heartbreaking. Yes. And Michelle, that's the thing, is we're trying to take this tragedy and look at a bigger problem through that lens in order to make a solution in the future that won't be so tragic. And let's remove these animals from these situations where this can even happen. Elizabeth says, I'm so sorry you lost your friend, sir. He deserves so much better. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's see. Now, Sierra says, if Harambe could speak like we humans do, what do you think he would have told you when you visited him every day at the zoo?
He would have laughed at me and said, you again? Don't you have something better to do? Well, and I think he would have been happy to, I think he felt as me. I feel he was my friend. I think that was reciprocal. I think he, and the gorilla keepers, that was what really shocked me. Several times the gorilla keepers would come up to me and ask me questions about him. And they told me, you know more about him than anybody.
Oh, wow.
And that just, shocked me. But, nobody else, they had so much work to do. The gorilla keepers, they spend 5-6 hours a day just chopping up food. And you can't, go watch a gorilla when you're in the kitchen chopping up food all day long. So they were jealous of me that, in a good way that, hey, Jeff, you get to be out here with him. And so they would ask me questions, if they had a question about him. And it was just, I really felt honored to be his spokesman, to the other staff, and, tell them, oh, he's, whatever the question was, he's fine. He looks good to me. And, he had that hook that everybody wanted to just, be around him. He, for being born the way he was and his whole life story, and then being, transplanted from Texas to Ohio out of the blue, he seemed to be really resilient and be able to make the best of anything he was, any situation he was in. And it really, I think it shows in the pictures that, he understood that this is the best it's going to get, is, me and Jeff playing around with the camera. So let's make it, as good as we can.
So let's talk real quick about how many times has this photo been shared?
I've seen Google say 5.5 billion, but there's also, where is it?
And so everybody, so that, this is one of the photos that became the viral meme photo in 2016. And to this day, it's in the Hall of Fame for memes. And we're going to get into it in a little bit, but they actually also became NFTs. And Harambe has multiple lives. He had his life at the zoo, he had his life with the photos with Jeff, and now he has his life as an online legend. And let's see, let's pop this out.
This
okay.
is the,
there you go, Jeff.
This is the one that just blows my mind. It says 27,275,000,000 versions of it on the internet, and that was Google's search. That was their high end, because I have 7 photos that went public, and all 7 of them I got the same result on back in the beginning, and like a year later. But according to Google, Google photo search, they say 25,270,000,000 images of that photo online. That was in 5/31/2019 or 18. I can't read, but that same number comes up for all the other photos that I took of him. It's the same number. So I always laugh to myself. It's like, Harambe, you broke Google. They couldn't go any higher. It just, this is my favorite photo of him.
Let's see. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was one of those days where I woke up and it was real cloudy and overcast, and so I grabbed. I had at the time a lens that was really heavy and didn't like using it much because it was so heavy, but it took such great pictures, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna. I really tried that day the goal was to get the best picture I could of him, and I was really happy with that. And it's the one the Cincinnati Zoo used on his actual death notice, and but you can see the 25,270,000,000 results. It's like, Harambe, you broke Google. You did that for 7 different photos, and it just, I was just taking photos that I enjoyed, and to have that happen worldwide, that a Google says that they've been shared that many times, is just, I can't think of a better compliment to me and Harambe. It's like, if Harambe wasn't loved so much, they wouldn't be sharing it. It has nothing to do with me. It's him. And that's like, what are we 7 or 8 years? We're 7.5 years, I guess, since, or a little over 7 years since then. And he's still on the tip of the tongue of so many people worldwide. It's just amazing. And he really is. I used to laugh, and now it's like, hey, I don't have to joke about it. It's true. He's the most famous gorilla in the world. More famous than King Kong. It just, and you'll see on the internet, people will do things about gorillas, want a list of the famous gorillas, and he wins every time. And it's like, Harambe, you just don't have any idea how much, when you left this world, how much people missed you. And I really am glad that I could have a small part in that, showing the world what we lost when that accident happened. That, hey, this is not just some little thing. We got to make sure this never happens again.
And, that's an interesting point, because, this is something that happens frequently in zoos. We learned about, in the movie, we talk about the dangerous animal response team. There's a lot of zoo shootings. There was one in Naples, Florida, with a tiger. So, but everything happens, people get upset, and then it disappears. And you've managed to keep this story that's so important for the future generations of gorillas and all animals, really, because we're talking about the zoo. You've managed to keep it alive and to keep it going. And Harambe as well has been part of that. And there's something interesting in that all these other stories are temporarily important, but then people forget, and nobody ever forgets Harambe. And sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, that's what's so shocking. It's like we don't have to promote him. He's taken over. You know, he's a part of human culture for probably forever, because it's at least for the all through our nation, our all the people that are around now. You know, for this generations, these few generations that have all known the story and whatever, we're all going to remember him till we die. And I think he'll, even go beyond that. I think, I can't imagine anybody having a more sad story than Harambe. And that's what I'm so excited about the documentary coming out. It shows people that, hey, he had a horrible ending to his story, but the rest of his story is not very uplifting either. He dealt with some real tragedies throughout his life, and he to come through it and to act like he did with me and still be able to smile. It's like a lot of I look at other humans, if they had dealt with the tragedies he had dealt with in his family, a lot of humans would have been crushed. I mean, they would have never snapped out of it. They would have been depressed for the rest of their life. He really had that resiliency that he saw something fun that dealing with me, and we had our times together. It's just, it's like I said, shocking. I was like, I'm just, a sports photographer from Northern Kentucky and ended up there by accident. And this all happens. It's just, it's just the way the world is so crazy sometimes. And that's, he did it, it's all about him, but I'm just so glad that I was able to show the world who he was.
Well, see, you said by accident, but maybe, maybe it wasn't.
Well,
you're supposed to have been there, I think.
Yeah, things just happen. That's the way my life has been through other things. And it's like, now I can look back and think, well, that little tiny step I took in that way, that, like I said, looking for butterflies. That's how I ended up there. I had no idea they had gorillas, baby gorillas. That's what first brought me to the gorillas. And then as soon as I got there with the babies, they started saying, oh, you're going to love this new one. We got Harambe's coming. I think he was already in the back in quarantine. So they knew he was there and just had to wait for the quarantine time, which is another thing nobody ever talks about. But you think about a life, and his life, he's in Texas, grew up all along there, and all of a sudden he's put in a box or a cage and shipped to Cincinnati, and he gets here, and it's months of quarantine where he's stuck in a basement, basically in a cage. And it's like, that's what I mean. He came out of it, and that's what I see in those first day photos that became so famous. It's his first day outside in months, and so he's just trying to figure out, okay, what's my new world like?
Wow.
I just don't think that's fair to any creature that has any kind of brain. And but he seemed to be handling it well.
Oh, well, I'm glad that he found some comfort in having a consistent friend in you. Because it's, and people will see in the movie, there's definitely a lot of tragedy. That's why we say everyone knows the story, but a lot of people don't know his story and how he got there. And actually, one of the reasons he was here is Dan, who's got a comment here. Thank you for sharing your experience, having a special relationship with Harambe and capturing it on film. And Dan is going to be one of our upcoming guests. Dan is the man that named Harambe. Had you and Dan ever spoken before, or did you guys connect through the movie?
I don't think we've ever spoken directly, but yeah, he's the one that should be credited with giving Harambe such a great start. I mean, the name is just perfect for everything before and after. I'm not a big name person. I have a horrible time remembering anybody's name. So for some reason, I'm a photographer. I remember your face, but I can't remember a name. But Harambe, Dan gave him a name that it just like, okay, that turned out to be a magical name for him. That I can't imagine there being a better choice for his name, and that started him out on this path to being a worldwide legend. And without that name, I don't think he would. That's a huge part of it. So Dan really deserves a lot of credit for coming up with such a great sounding name, but also has such great meaning to it. It's everything about the name fits perfectly, and I think that's a very important part to his popularity.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things. Now, what I'd like to really talk about is, you and Harambe became friends and had this deep connection, and then the tragedy happened, and then your photo became a viral photo and became a meme, and to this day, you are sort of like a caretaker of Harambe's image and Harambe's spirit and Harambe's story. And Elizabeth's question mixes into the question I have for you right now. Elizabeth says, how can we help prevent a situation like this happening again? And my version of that question to you that I'll ask at the same moment is, why is it so important for you to keep Harambe's memory alive? And what do you hope it can do or change in the future, like Elizabeth says, to try to prevent these situations from happening?
Well, I hope people realize that the way we do it now, where we have this, it's like 350 gorillas in the United States that are just put on display, supposedly so they can teach us to love and respect them in the wild. It's like, well, we don't have to take them out of the wild anymore to do that. The technology with video and photos and everything. And you can go visit the gorillas in the wild if you're lucky enough to be able to afford it. And I think it's very selfish of us to think, hey, we have the right to keep these gorillas in these areas, where they are literally in a jail, just so we can say we've seen a live one. When if you want to see how a gorilla really lives and how they interact, get on YouTube. There's thousands and thousands of videos that are better than you'll ever see from a zoo of showing them in the wild. It's they're not a mystery in the wild now. The people in Africa are doing wonderful work where they're able to show us, hey, this is how they live, and so I just hope that now I look at it that the zoo with the gorillas and like the elephants and whatever, it's more of a circus type creation where we're just here to use these to show you because you want to see it and come pay your admission and you'll come and see it. There's no real good I see coming out of it for the gorillas now. There's the good for the gorillas would be hey, this is going to be our last gorilla ever bred to live in a cage for the rest of his life, and once he's gone, or she, whichever the last one is, then you'll know that they're over in Africa. You can go see them if you want to watch a video. The videos now with the high definition videos, it's you can see better videos than you'd see at the zoo. The zoo gorillas are very, very seldom doing anything but just sitting around bored. And so it's there's such a better world for them to be where they're supposed to be. And so hopefully we can, all of us, I think in the Western world, we all agree, yeah, we need to save their habitat and everything. And the Africans in the African countries where they are wild are understanding, hey, this is not something we should kill. This is our most valuable asset we have to use for tourism and to use to, get people to know about their country. And so hopefully that becomes, more and more common, and just kind of let's fade the zoo. Like, elephants are the other example where in England, they've eliminated elephants in zoos. And it's, there's no reason we can't say, well, we need elephants in a zoo so we can take our little kids so they know what an elephant is. No, they can see it on a big screen TV, and that's just as good, and they can see them in the wild, and they'll see much more interesting, things they do and how they act in the wild. And it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago where the video wasn't very good. And, it's like, no, the video now is such high quality. It's like, brings you right there. There's no reason, it's just magical how good the quality has gone up in the last 20 years. And so one of the dreams I have is somebody needs to try a virtual zoo and see if the public, how they would like that. And it would be where they may have a few animals in there that are local or animals that they're rehabbing to send back out in the wild, but mostly it'll be the same setup as zoos now. There'll be different buildings. This is a cat house. This is the bird house. This is the gorilla house. And you go in and it'd just be full of widescreen and high definition theater screens. And you'll have a kiosk. You go up and they'll have hundreds of videos you can choose from. And, you let your kid choose which video they want to watch. And I think people would get more enjoyment out of that than they'd actually do from going to see a live gorilla at a zoo right now, because the videos that are available, and that would spur more videos being created because they would have, such a great outlet. And I think that could be very popular, and, we could see them, feel like we're a part of their world, but not have to, capture them and put them in a confined space anymore. Just,
that's a great point. With the video and where we are today, a zoo is a business model from the 1800s.
Yeah.
And, we don't need that business model to go on. Things like dentistry have changed. Things like surgeries have changed, transportation, entertainment, everything has changed except for a zoo, which is one of our last antiquated concepts that needs to be looked at through this filter of Harambe's tragedy to really understand, is this something that should continue? Is this really helping, anything? And I love your idea of the virtual zoo. I think, it'd be amazing, because if we had that, they could actually animate and people could go back and visit Harambe again.
Yeah, that's right. I have videos of him that nobody's seen yet. That's, they'll get to see some of them in the documentary, but that's another thing that just, this whole situation, like I said, it blows my mind. But I had a camera, the cameras, the technology keeps getting better. And all of a sudden I had this still camera that did videos, and I don't need to learn more things. I'm not interested in videos. And finally with Harambe, I thought, well, okay, we're going to be here this long and, hanging out. I need to figure out how to do videos. So it's just such a proud thing that makes me proud to say, there's nobody else in the world that can say, I learned how to shoot video with Harambe. He was my teacher. That was what I started. It's like, being a sports photographer and starting out at the World Series, it's like, no, I didn't have to start at the bottom. When I decided to learn video, I did it with Harambe.
Well, I'm excited. We get to share a lot of the really cool videos that you got to take with him. And like I said, it's another way of really a nice intimacy with him. He's so comfortable with you and the way he moves around. And I'm real excited to share that. Like Amy says, thank you so much for your amazing work. Remembering Harambe and his story is so important, and this will help bring attention to all gorillas. They are incredible. And that is, that's the thing, is Harambe's story we really do want to use to magnify what's happening with gorillas now. For people that are just tuning in, gorillas are keystone species and they're endangered, which means that if they go, we go. In a nutshell, that's a keystone species. And then Sally says, love the virtual zoo idea. So, I think a lot of people would be willing to jump in on that.
Yeah. And I just thought of it, existing zoos, they could start that now with just, one exhibit, an animal that they've always been wanted to have, they don't have now. Well, try setting up a virtual of that and see how the people react.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like that they could be known for going places nobody can go and getting great
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
A very non-invasive, non-controlling fashion, and something else we get into the movie is about prison and the idea of these cages, whether it's people or animals being in them, and how that doesn't really benefit anything. And Brenda says, congratulations. Brenda's another amazing activist. And I know Brenda will be watching the movie. And let's see. And that's Sierra's putting this one up here. We need more innovative solutions like a virtual zoo. Exactly. If we can't imagine new solutions, they can't become a reality. And that's one thing is Harambe has taken the imagination of the entire world and captured it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because, like I said, ever since the day that the photo came out, you have been the keeper of that photo. You've made sure it's been used. And, one of the things you said to me that I always loved when I first met you, she said, anybody can use it. It's free for people, but not for companies. And I like that. No companies can exploit him, but everyone can express themselves through your photo. And that is a beautiful way to have shared his imagery and his spirit with us.
Yeah, that was, I had to make a choice when he went viral and crazy. It's like, okay, I can either let this upset me that, oh, my photos are stolen, or just say, oh, no, I'm so, complimented by people that they want to use my photo. And there's been some companies that have used it when they shouldn't have. And I have a set of lawyers that they've gotten me some nice checks. So it works out great.
That's great. I like that because that takes the exploitation right away. Like companies, that's what the zoo is doing, exploiting. Yeah. And, now I do want to talk about something very exciting, which was the creation of NFTs, which is kind of a new thing. And Harambe NFTs went up for sale. And I know that a bunch of them sold. And what I wanted to mention to everybody, which I thought was another amazing thing, was you took the money and you put money back into sanctuaries that are actually saving gorillas in Africa. And you used Harambe always as a way to advance and better the gorillas world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tell people, it felt like money was falling out of the sky, and I just wouldn't have felt right, not trying to do something. And, we started a charity and that didn't work out. And so then we went on and found other charities that are already going and know what they're doing. And so it's nice when I get a check, I can send them, a check, and they're very grateful. And the Limbe Wildlife Center is the one I've kind of narrowed in on now. And they couldn't be happier and treat me, so well, and are so thankful. And it's like, oh, you guys are out there doing the work, and so it's great to be able to help them, which, like I said, money fell out of the sky. It wasn't something I'd be able to do before, but it really is a nice thing to be able to say, yeah, I was able to help them out, in their goal. And it's, the NFT thing has just been crazy. I mean, it's people, there's a lot of people that say NFTs are just a fad and they'll go away, and 10 years nobody will know what they are. But it's I have Harambe has been very popular in that world, and people love him and people pay big bucks for him. It's like, okay, this is great. And, but that's the other thing, though, the people,
Michelle,
the NFT people, when they say it's going to die, the one thing that they say will survive is ones like Harambe, though. They think those will last. It's the other silly, people sell these silly graphics and goofy pictures and whatever, and they get, hot for a while and then they lose their, it's like a fad. And I've had many people in the NFT world reach out to me and say, no, what you've got is what's going to last. And that's what I mean with Dan. He gave him the perfect name. Harambe had the perfect disposition, the way he acted towards being photographed all the time towards me. It's like, he's going to be around for a long time, and that's great.
Yeah, that is really, it's amazing to me. He was viral, right? Even before the photo went viral, and then the photo went viral, and now as an NFT, it just makes sense. That's one of those photos where you think this is what NFTs are for. Michelle has a great question. What is an NFT? I believe it stands for non-fungible token, and it's basically an ownership of a piece of art, a piece of digital art, like having a painting. But instead of that painting being on your wall, you own the photo. So the famous photo of Harambe, and all the other photos that have been released, somebody now has a digital version that they own. Is that right, Jeff? Or is that closer?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it's the digital right to that photo, and there's only one of each photo. There's not multiples, and they can resell that photo if they want to. And it's just like having a painting on your wall from an artist, but it's a digital version of it. And there's only one person for each photo that can say, I own that one. And it's theirs forever until they decide to sell it.
It's a fascinating, brand new thing. We were with you the day that the Harambe NFTs went for sale, and it was wild to watch that happen because we'd never really heard of an NFT before. We were all like, well, what is this? What's happening? And it was really amazing to see. And it was, it was really cool to watch that happen, and once again, Harambe innovates and continues to perpetuate, And Elizabeth says a great way to memorialize him. Absolutely. Because he's now another piece of art that people will make sure, he's always going to be floating out there. And Paula says, when I was a teacher, my students were obsessed with Harambe. That's great. Well, I hope that they all watch the movie and then start to question captivity. Let's see. And Harambe, yes, he did. He touched the lives of so many. And, Jeff, you have, getting to know you, I has been such a treat because you're a very selfless person, and that comes across. You have spent pretty much, like I said, every day since Harambe passed away, trying to make sure that people don't forget about him. And he is the only incident of his kind that people remember. So it's worked. And not only that, but he has inspired people to take action. He has inspired. And so we've gone from a terrible tragedy to an inspirational story that's going to continue to change things for the future. So, thank you again for your work.
Oh, I appreciate it. But I think people are really going to be grateful to you when they see the documentary because, I had no idea who you were. It's just a chance meeting that we got together, and that I've seen what you've done with the documentary and the whole team has done. And I'm so proud of what you guys have done with it. And I can't wait for the world to see it. It's really, really going to bring his story home to everybody. Like it's hard to imagine it being more powerful than he already is, but I think you're going to do that for him. I really do. Because watching him in a documentary where it tells his whole story, I think, once people see his whole story, they're just going to be more in love with Harambe than they ever were, which seems impossible because he's, adored worldwide. Russian Times prints photos of Harambe. I can't think of anything more outrageous.
Well, thank you. It's very kind to say that. We're very excited to share the movie, and we've all feel very honored to have been allowed in to be part of the story and to try to help promote the story and to try to help maintain Harambe's memory. And you brought us into the world, and it's great. And thank you so much, Jeff, for being with us today, talking to us, letting us know what it was like to be Harambe's friend, because you're the only person that really has that perspective.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling that, such a big star, and I'm like his spokesman left behind, to speak for him. And I feel so honored. It's just been you know, an amazing experience for me. And I think the movie is going to show people how, much more of how special I thought of him, and how, he pulled me in. He's going to pull everybody in even more than he has now. Now he's, a meme and an icon, but they'll get to really know who he was and what he was up to and what he was like. I can't wait. You guys have done such a fabulous job on the documentary. I think people are, I can't wait to see the reviews of it. I really, I've been telling friends the last couple of days, I just got really lucky. I could have given this to some hacks that could have just thrown something together. No, I got people that really knew what they were doing and have done a wonderful job. I feel so grateful, because that, like I said, it could have been, somebody, oh, Harambe's famous. We don't have to do anything. Let's just throw some shit together. And, and you put, years of work into it, and it really tells a great story. And not just using the Harambe image and name and the fame you already had. It's like, no, people are going to learn a lot more from this and really feel like, okay, now I know the Harambe story.
There are definitely some crazy twists and turns that we were shocked as we started to make the movie,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jeff. Great to have you on. It's always great to get to talk to you, man. It's a wonderful experience to be able to, like you said, to be part of this topic, but also to get to know you. You're one of a kind, and thank you again for all that you've done for Harambe, for gorillas, and keeping positive vibes out there. Thanks for being with us today.
You're very welcome. I couldn't be happier to be in this role. It's like the dream of a lifetime to be, to be able to help such magnificent creatures. Hopefully that they get treated better for the rest of their lives. I can't wait. And thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Well, there we go, everybody. Incredible time talking to the one and only Jeff McCurry, an amazing person who just acts from his heart. And I'm sure you got to see that today when we were talking to him. A very genuine person, and you can see how Harambe connected with that, because that's one thing that our closest relatives have that a lot of us have lost touch with, which is just sincerely being sincere and just being us. And we can learn that from them, and we should learn that again. And we should get back in touch with that instead of us pretending like they act like we do. We need to understand that we need to act more like them. So anyway, we're very excited. It was amazing to get to talk to Jeff today. I wanted to let everybody know we've got the website scrolling right down here, harambemovie.com. You can go there, and we have a sign up for the emails. Please sign up with us. We're being censored sometimes on Facebook, sometimes on other, social media. This is a topic that is a challenging topic. The zoos have a lot of power, and we're finding it to be a little bit of a challenge. So we need your help. We need to keep word of mouth going. We need everybody to see this movie, hear this story, and demand change for the future. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Make sure to come join us over on and be part of our email list, and join us next week, because we are going to continue to talk Harambe every week. And don't forget, September 24th, Harambe will be out, and you will be able to see it and get a copy of it. We'll have more information coming up. Plus, we're having a premiere. And, I can't give away too much of that, but I will soon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.